Today is the last day of our sessions on Dharma Shastras and Dharma in actual life, what it means in life. In Sridhar ji, we are on advanced level 2 course of certificate course on Sanatana Dharma. It is being organized by Veda Samskruti Samiti, association with Vishwa Yoga Vidyapeeth, and 1 month of the course is already over, and we are in the second month. Even in the second month, one topic, Vedic mathematics, is completed. Now we are on Dharma. Now we will start the session with reciting Vande Mataram and chanting Prarthana. So let us request Challa Chittibabu Garu to recite Vande Mataram, please.
Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram, Sujalam Sufalam, Malayaj Sitalam, Sasya Syamalam Mataram, Vande Mataram, Subrajyosna Pulakitayamini, Pullakusumita Drumadala Shobhini, Suhasini, Sumadhura Bhashini, Sukhadam Varadam Mataram, Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram.
Vande Mataram. ధన్యవాదములండి చల్లా చిట్టిబాబు గారు. Now let us request Purushottam Garu to chant Prarthana, please.
Yes, sir. Namah Sarvebhyaha. Let us go for meditation for a minute. Let us close the eyes. Just relax. Forget about your physical entity. Concentrate on the Sadguna Brahma or on your Shwasa. Just for 1 minute. Om Gananam Tva Ganapatim Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upasrastamam Jyeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanasvata Anahas Shrananotibihi Sida Sadhanam Mahaganapate Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vajebhir Vajanivati Dhinamamitravat Om Vagdevyai Namaha Gurureva Gatihi Gurumeva Bhaje Guruneva Sahasme Namo Gurave Na Guroh Paramam Shishirasmi Guroh Matirasti Guroh Mama Pahi Guroh Jnananandamayam Devam Nirmalaspatikakrutim Adharam Sarva Vidyanam Hayatrim Upasmahe Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तः पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवत् व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहैः। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। स्वस्ति महोदय।
నమస్కారం అండి. ధన్యవాదములు.
Thank you.
Now let us request Nithin ji to continue the webinar, please.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Namaste and good morning to everyone. Let me begin with a small prayer. Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. So in yesterday's session, we saw some characteristics of Dharma that Mahabharata speaks about, and these characteristics the Mahabharata has enunciated to facilitate us, to help us to analyze our life situations, our environment around us, in a so to facilitate this analysis of our situations and see what actions are positive, what actions are giving rise to prabhava, dharana, are exhibiting such characters, and what actions are depraving or leading to depravity and dissolution and such negative things. So of course you should understand that this analysis is not on sure footing if we are purely relying upon our pratyaksha pramana, that is our own direct perception, or a direct perception combined with logic and inference, pratyaksha and anumana. If we are purely relying on them, then this analysis is not on a sure footing. It would be only on sure footing when these the direct perception and anumana are anchored in Shabda Pramana, the Agama, that is Shruti, Smriti, Itihasa, Purana. So that is the three tests of Bhishma. We saw Bhishma saying how Dharma has to be contextualized. How, Dharma is eternal. The principles of Dharma are eternal. However, despite being eternal, they are also essentially relative. That is, they are essentially context specific. That is, when we speak of Dharma, we are not speaking of what happened in the past or what may happen in the future. Our question is, what should I do now, here and now? So in order for Dharma to be relevant for here and now, Dharma has to be context specific. So the moment we say what I should do now and what I should not do now, we are in the process to contextualize the eternal knowledge to our situation. So the whole game is in this contextualization, and all our mistakes also happen in this contextualization. So Mahabharata gave many characteristics to help this contextualization. It also gave three tests, and Bhishma says that these three tests have to be done together. They are direct perception, the Shabda Pramana, and then he says that the use of logic and argumentation has its use. It has to be used. It's like a sword which has to be used to understand the Shastra, but it should not be used as a weapon to dismantle the Shastras, because the logic has its limitations. So these what this is what we saw in yesterday's session. The third test was Shishtachara again. Now in today's session, we will go further and we will actually see some important tenets of Dharma, some other teachings of Mahabharata before we wrap up. So today we'll be seeing what Mahabharata calls as Shila, a very, very important tenet that Mahabharata speaks about as the core of Dharma practice. Then we will see some ideas from Mahabharata about how to pursue, how to balance the pursuit of Purusharthas. And then we will end the discussion with a few more key ideas about what dharmic tenets to follow. And we see a very interesting account about the family of Dharma. Dharma is personified as a Devata, and we see his family, his wives, his sons, and this enumeration in the Mahabharata as well as in Puranas such as Vishnu Purana, etc. They are of deep value for understanding Dharma better. So with this brief introduction, let me share my presentation. Just give me a second. Are you able to see the full screen?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So, among the many lakshanas that I mentioned of Dharma, one lakshana you can say, or one principle of Dharma, or one very core aspect of Dharma is that we did not discuss yesterday is Shila. Mahabharata considers this Shila as the very root of everything. It is the very root of all practice of Dharma, and therefore it gives dedicates lot of time, lot of space to enumeration of this Shila. Shila can be usually translated into, and it has a variety of meanings such as disposition, nature, character, tendency, inclination, habit, custom, virtue, morality, good conduct, virtuous life, chastity, uprightness. And I think all Indian languages have the term Shila, and it is there in Kannada. I think it may be there in Telugu and all as well. So we have an intuitive understanding of what Shila is. It's about character. It's about disposition. So Mahabharata posits this Shila as the source of all virtues, all happiness, all prosperity. And in this context, it enumerates a very beautiful account, a story of an account of Prahalada, the Asura emperor who was a great devotee of Vishnu. So this is a story of Prahalada and Indra, the Shakra, the lord of the Devatas. And I think this story is from Shanti Parva, chapter 124. But I have taken here a summary of that story, that account, given by Chaturvedi Badrinath Ji in his book, the book I mentioned yesterday, Mahabharata, an Enquiry into Human Condition. So, what is the gist of the story? Basically, Prahalada had achieved great coherence within himself. As a result of which, he came to possess great power, immense power of compassion and benevolence. So we know from the stories that Prahalada was a great devotee of Vishnu. He had practiced all the steps of bhakti. So he was greatly devoted, and as a result of which, he had developed great power of compassion. He had great coherence. So he was practicing all the dharmic activities in the rightful manner. So through this power, through this power of austerity, through such power of coherence, through such power of adherence to dharma and compassion, he had developed great power such that he was able to conquer all the three worlds. The Bhuloka, Bhuvarloka, the Swargaloka, all of them he was able to conquer, including that of the gods. So he basically replaced Indra at the celestial office. So he replaced Indra as the lord of the Devatas by conquering even Swargaloka. But the point to note here is, while the different asuras in general, we have seen that they do tapas, get boons, and then they wage war, and then in the course of that, they harass the rishis, they cause a lot of adharma, they kind of do lot of adharmic activities, violence, etc. As a result of it, ultimately they meet their demise at the hand of a avatara, or at the hand of one of the deities, Shiva, Vishnu, whatever it is. But it is not so in the case of Prahalada. He was able to capture the three worlds. He was able to subdue Indra through his tapasya, through his righteousness, through the power generated from the great coherence he developed within himself through his practice of dharma, through his practice of compassion, benevolence, and other dharmic tenets. So he was so there was no adharma in the whole situation. So there was no way to defeat him. So, but however, the office of the celestial office of Swarga rightfully belongs to Indra. It is the Indra Swadharma to look after the order of the universe. So he could not simply sit idle, right? So one day, disguised as a ascetic, as a mendicant, as a basically a wandering monk, Indra appeared before Prahalada and said to Prahalada that he has come to learn from him what Shreya is. Shreya is what is truly good, as against Preya, what is merely pleasurable. So he said the Indra as mendicant requested Prahalada for instruction from him about what is truly good. Prahalada the emperor said that he was busy with administration of the three worlds, and therefore there was no moment to spare to teach him. Obviously, Prahalada, what our tradition says is, knowledge should not be simply should not be shared with those who are not competent to receive it, who do not have the qualities required to receive it. So simply because somebody comes and asks, we don't share knowledge. So instead, the teacher usually tests the students before teaching anything. So that is what emperor was also wanted to do. So Prahalada simply said that I am busy, boss, so I don't have time. The mendicant, however, was Indra anyway, so he knew how to handle such situations. So he stayed on in the palace nevertheless and attended upon the emperor. See, one of the duties of a student, one of the ways the student has to approach the teacher is through Shushrusha. That is attending and servicing the teacher, attending upon the needs of the teacher. So that is what he did, Indra did here. As a student, as a mendicant who wanted to learn, he attended upon the emperor, and through Shushrusha, he pleased Prahalada. And Prahalada was so pleased with his devotion that one day Prahalada simply said, "Ask whatever you wish and it shall be given." Hearing this, Indra knew that his time had come. However, he wanted to make it certain that Prahalada meant what he said. So he said, Indra said, "You have already given me so much, I don't need anything else." However, Prahalada even more pleased, because he was pleased with a kind of humility and detachment that Indra showed. So Prahalada said, "Even so, ask away." Then Indra struck. So this was the once in a lifetime chance for Indra. So he said, "If you are pleased with me and wish to do me good, then grant me that I have your Sheela." See how intelligent and cunning, you could say, Indra was. So Indra was no knave person, as we sometimes understand. He was no innocent child. He was a very experienced player in the game. There were always asuras and rakshasas who wanted to usurp his sovereignty. So he had his ways to deal with them, using all the four Sama, Dharma, Danda, and Veda. So all methods he used. So here he saw the opportunity and asked for a boon, saying that, "Give me your Sheela." That is the Sheela of the Prahalada. Prahalada being emperor, now he could not go back on his word. Prahalada was pleased that what Indra asked was not some material prosperity or such things, but in fact, it was about Sheela, a very good thing. However, at the same time, he was also seized with a vague fear, because what Indra was asking is actually not teaching about how to lead a life based on Sheela. He was actually asking for the Sheela of Prahalada himself. Even so, Prahalada could not go back on his word, so he said, "Be it so, let it be." And then the Indra, as mendicant, he left the place. Now, what happened is, after the Indra was gone, Prahalada felt inner disquiet without quite knowing why. Just as he was thinking what is happening, he saw, because he was a great devotee, he was able to see it personally. He saw a column of light in a human form emerged from his body. Astonished, he asked, "Who are you?" The answer came, "I am Sheela, who until now was inseparable from you, but you have given me away, and I am leaving you." And the light vanished. Soon thereafter emerged another column of light from his body, whereupon Prahalada asked, "Who are you?" "Who are you?" He said, "I am Dharma." And he again said that, "I am also leaving you, for I live where Sheela lives." Then in quite quick succession, after Dharma left, three more columns of light emerged and left the body of Prahlada. They were Satya, the truth; Achara, Sadachara, that is good conduct; and strength, Bala, strength. So all of them said that they were leaving him, following the other. So when Sheela left, when Prahalada gave up his Sheela, it led to a series of qualities, series of strengths or principles, abandoning Prahalada. So following Sheela, Dharma left following Dharma. This Satya left following Satya. Good conduct left following good conduct. Strength, Balam also left. At last, after all of them left, there was one more column of light who left, and that column of light came out again in the form of a woman. And now Prahlada asked, and now who are you? So she said, I am Shri, all that which is desirable in human life. I lived in you, but you have abandoned me, and I too am leaving you, for I live where strength is. Paralyzed with fear, he asked her again, who was that mendicant? Who was that Brahmana? I want to know the truth. The Chakra was raw, the Shri replies that that person was Chakra, the Indra, who robbed you of that effulgence of yours that you had that had covered the three worlds. She again said to Prahalada, it was through Shila that you became what you were and had conquered whatever there is to conquer, and it is that which you gave away yourself. Before she left, Shri also again reiterated what she said is Dharma satyam tata vrittam balam chaiva tathapyaham Sheela moolam mahapragya sada nastyatra samshayaha. Sheela moolam. All of them, all of us are rooted in Sheela. Who? Dharma, Satya, that is Dharma is righteousness, Satya is truth, Vrittam, wealth, Balam, strength, and I is here Shri, which is prosperity, overall well-being, overall prosperity. All of us are rooted in Sheela, of that there is no doubt. Very, very important story, very, very insightful story, because what it is saying is why Sheela or character is the root of everything. It is not just the root of Dharma, it is root of everything. Because only when one's character, it is, it is all good and easy to speak about Dharma in a very theoretical sense. We need to do this, we need to do that. But without character, without a nature such that we are living the Dharma. So Sheela is all about living the Dharma, walking the path, walking the talk, as they say, right? So without that, all this discussion is meaningless. So therefore, where Sheela is, there Dharma is there, there Satya is there, their wealth is there, their strength is there, their Shri, overall prosperity is there. Because only when Sheela and Satya and good conduct and Bala, everything is there, only then prosperity is possible. Prosperity is not possible without any one of them or two of them, especially as it says, Shri cannot be there where strength is, because for holding upon prosperity, you need strength. So this also reminds upon on a statement from Arthashastra. I think it says, Arthasya Moolaha Dharmaha, Dharmasya Moolaha. I just forgot that verse. You can just check it in the internet. So at the end, it says, the moola of everything, the artha, dharma, and etc., is Rajya. And that moola of that Rajya is Raja, basically. So there is power. Shakti is needed to hold, to practice dharma, to acquire artha and all those things. So Sheela is the root, because where Sheela is, only there Dharma, Satya, wealth, Bala, all of them are possible, all of them like. So that is the gist of this story. So again, the question is, what exactly is this Sheela? We saw some vague meanings about what Shila is. Okay, you can read the shloka here. I have given the shloka in the thing presentation for this purpose. Let me just read it out again. Dharma satyam tatha vrittam balam chaiva tatapyaham Sheelamoola prahapragya sada nastyatra samshaya. This is from Shanti Parva. So you can, this presentation you will receive, so then you can check it out. So we just saw that various meanings like disposition, nature, virtue, good conduct, and all such things. But what exactly is Sheela? Does Mahabharata give a definition of Sheela? Sheela, which it posits as abandoning Sheela, will take away with it all that is of human worth. So that is what the story is saying, that if you abandon Sheela, then everything that is of human worth, be it wealth, be it prosperity, be it satya, truth, be it dharma, everything leaves you. So what is that Sheela? So Mahabharata, in the same story, it gives answer to this. It says, Adroha sarva bhuteshu karmana manasagira anugrahascha danam cha Sheelametad prashasyate. So I mentioned how Sheela is all about practice, your conduct, your practice which has become your very nature. So the Mahabharata identifies three aspects of this Sheela. What it says, what is this Sheela? Freedom, adroha, sarvabhuteshu, that is freedom from malice, freedom from treacherousness towards all beings. And this lack of maliciousness, this non-aggression, non-maliciousness is karmana manasagira. So this is in act, speech, and thought. That is karma, karma, vacha, manasa. All three levels, right? Second is anugrahascha. You have to be compassionate. You have to be benevolent towards all. So anugrahascha means you are always in a mode of favorable. You are always favorable to others. You are always compassionate to others. You are not posited negatively towards others. So that is what anugrahascha is. And danam, you are always sharing. So Sheela is these three qualities, that in action you have to do the danam. In your attitude, you have to be anugrahascha, you have to be benevolent, compassion, and you have to be completely free from any form of malice towards others, be it in thought, be it in action or in speech. We have many definitions of Sheela from other texts also. For example, in Manusmriti, in the second chapter, the Sheela is mentioned, and different commentators define this Sheela in slightly different way. The Meda Tithi, but all of these definitions tie into what we have been discussing actually. Meda Tithi and Govindaraja, two important commentators on Manusmriti, they define Sheela as Raga Dvesha Parityajya, that is giving up, abandoning, giving up Raga and Dvesha, that is Raga is attachment and Dvesha is hatredness. So see how this definition ties up with Mahabharata definition. Freedom from malice and benevolence towards all is not possible unless you give up your raga dvesha. When there is raga and dvesha, there is always partiality. There is always some who you treat better, some you do not, you treat worse, right? So freedom adroha is possible when there is raga dvesha parityajya. Even anugraha is possible when there is raga dvesha parityajya. Kulukavata, another prominent commentator on Manusmriti, he defines Shila in a little bit different way. He actually gives the definition of Shila given by Harita, another Dharma Shastra writer, who has who has written his Harita Dharma Sutras and all, where Harita definition is Shila is having Brahmana like behavior. Brahmana like behavior means exhibiting Brahmana qualities such as Shama, Dama, etc. So self-control, control of your senses, your mind, learning, and all such qualities. Devotion to Devatas and Pitrus, being situated in bhakti, gentility, kindness, freedom from jealousy, sympathy, absence of cruelty, friendliness, agreeable speech, gratefulness, being prepared to grant shelter, mercy, calmness. In short, if we see all these tenets, it is very obvious that what is being referred as Shila, basically it constitutes the tenets of Samanya Dharma. If you just recall, we discussed in our Dharma Shastra sessions on Samanya Dharma and Vishesha Dharma. So Samanya Dharma are universal ethical principles. So Shila is nothing but these practice of these ethical principles, these principles of Samanya Dharma, especially those focused on one's attitude towards others and one's relationship towards others. So that is why the stress is here from freedom from hatred and attachment, freedom from malice towards other being, anugrahashta, the benevolence towards all, sharing with others, sympathy and gentility. So all these are especially those attitudes, those principles of dharma, which focus upon specially in a special sense with our attitudes towards others, our relationship to others. So the how we behave in society with others. So that is what Shila is. And this Shila is the root of everything. It is this through the Shila Prahalada was able to conquer all the worlds, because when such a Shila is there, Dharma is there, because very practice of Shila implies a practice of Dharma. And where such Dharma is there, there will be good conduct, there will be wealth, there will be prosperity, right? Now, so this was about Sheila. If there was, I think there was one or two questions. I think I'll just quickly take it up if possible before going further. Or replacing Chakra in the celestial office refers to whom? So as I mentioned, it's talking about Prahalada. Prahalada, through his austerity, through his Sheila, was captured all the three worlds and replaced Chakra as the lord of the Devatas. Basically, he like in our democracy, or in other governments, one comes, there is a rebellion and he kicks out the current king and takes his place. So that's what Prahalada did. But he did it through Sheila. Unlike other asuras who did it through violence, he did it through his Sheila. So the power of his austerity was such that he was easily able to capture everything, including Swarga, and he took up the place of Chakra, Indra. So what is the work of Indra? It is to maintain Rita and ensure there is a smooth workings of the universe. So that is what Prahalada began to perform. That is what the phrase means. The other question is Sheila, Vidya or other quality, if transferred, why it will be lost? Will it not be present in the source also? Like we copy a file from computer. But here it is not a copy and paste, it is cut and paste. That is what Indra did, right? He asked for Sheila, just like Indra asked Karna for his Kundala and other things. He asked for Sheila. He did not say, give me a portion of your Sheila. Teach me Sheila. Teaching Sheila to would have been copy and paste. Here he asked for the punyam. See, what he is asking is actually punya, the karmic merit that Prahalada had stored as a result of his Shila. So it is not a copy and paste, it is cut and paste. So, but see, the purpose of this story, it's an Arthavada, it has to be understood. Story would have happened, definitely, there is no doubt about it. In some place, we should not perceive it in a historical manner in which year this happened, right? These are all stories of the Devatas. These are all celestial accounts. It would have happened in some realm and some place. We cannot use our senses to perceive it. But what is the purpose of this story in the including the story by Vyasa and the Mahabharata? The purpose is to teach us simply this, that if we are as an individual rooting ourselves in Shila, if we have cultivated a character which is by spontaneously is living a righteous life, then all kinds of prosperity will come to us. All wealth, prosperity, all goodness, all truth, everything positive comes to us. But if we were to abandon this Shila, if we were to abandon the practice of Samanya Dharma, ethical principles, then even though in temporarily it may appear that, like, if you are corrupt, we are making a lot of money, we are becoming rich, temporarily it appears that we are rising up in life. But eventually what happens, we will be fall into great destruction. Everything will leave us, prosperity and everything will eventually leave us. So that is the gist of the story, gist of the teaching. Here again I am pointing out, it is not that jnana is being given as a dana. What Shakra asked was the Shila, the Punyam of Prahalada. He did not ask for an instruction about Shila. So that much let's have clarity, right? So he is not that it is about blessing and all. That would be a very different case. See, I think whether Shilavati, Gunavati, see, the thing is, in popular parlance, it is true that Sheila is specially associated with women. But again, I think it has to do with the fact how we perceive Stri in our tradition. So Stri is seen as the abode of Lakshmi. She is seen as abode of all the Sattva Gunas. She is seen as abode of Shila again. That does not mean that Shila or Guna is not needed for men. So if it was not needed for men, why would there be such a big Dharma Shastra text teaching what men should do, right? All the yagyas we have to do, all the principles of Dharma, Sadharana Dharma, Samanya Dharma. Why would it be there if Shila is only for women? So the point it is making is that women who are Shilavati, Gunavati, etc., they are doing their Swadharma, and they only when they have this, they are Sampanna with these qualities, then they are able to do Swadharma, and it is applicable to men also, right? Okay. Thank you again. Let me just restart my presentation, and we will go to the second part of today's presentation. After Sheila, I want to share some thoughts about Purusharthas in general. Mahabharata has some very, very interesting, very important ideas about Purusharthas. So I will just briefly discuss two instances where Mahabharata discusses Purusharthas. One is in Shanti Parva and one is in Vana Parva. So in Shanti Parva, there is a discussion among the Pandavas and Vidura. So the discussion opens with Yudhishthira asking an open question, a leading question. He asks the questions that the conduct of people is based on Dharma, Artha and Kama. Which of these is most important? Which is medium? and which is the least important. If one wishes to conquer all the three categories together, which of these must one control? O wise one, you should speak truthful words and satisfy me. So basically, the central question Yudhishthira asks is, which among the four pursuits of life, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, but here he is focusing on only three, Dharma, Artha, Kama, that's fine. Which among them can be considered as a primary pursuit from which all others spontaneously follow? Now, I won't go in detail into this discussion, a very wonderful discussion. You should check it out in the Shanti Parva for the lack of time. But in short, all of them give different answers. Vidura was the first to speak. He upholds the primacy of Dharma. He notes how the worlds are established in Dharma and how even Artha is submerged in Dharma itself. He says, without Dharma, neither Artha nor Kama is possible. Therefore, Dharma is supreme, Artha is the medium, and Kama is the least important. So he basically, Vidura gives a very standard understanding, standard format, which most of us follow, and and it is a very perfectly valid format, that our first anchorage in life should be with Dharma, and then Artha and Kama will follow. Artha and Kama should not be focused in isolation. Our main affinity should be towards Dharma. However, Arjuna puts a different position. He says, he argues for primacy of Artha. And the reason he gives for is very interesting. He argues for primacy of Artha because he says that all activities can be accomplished only through Artha. So he's saying that even for doing Dharma, you need to have resources. Having resources is the Artha, right? If you want to give Dana, you must have the wealth and the means to give Dana, right? So that is what Artha is primacy. That is what he says. So he says, without Artha, even Dharma and Kama cannot be acquired. So if you want to fulfill your worldly desire, then also Artha is needed. This position is further upheld by Nakula and Sahadeva, but they add that Artha and Dharma are always united with each other. Therefore, they must be pursued together and not in isolation. Bhima was the third to speak, and he comes up with a very different answer, and even that answer is very interesting. He argues for a primacy of Kama, noting how without Kama, there will be no impulse at all to undertake any other pursuits. So this is another very important argument. He says, even we see in Manusmriti the statement that the root of all action is desire. Without desire, we will not take up any action. Even for using Artha to attain our desires or to attain Dharma or whatever it is, we must have a desire in the first place. We must have a desire in the sense that doing this action will lead to that result. So for the sake of that result, let me do action. Let me do Artha, let me do Dharma to attain that result. Therefore, Kama is primary. So here, Bhima intelligently, he shifts the definition of Kama from as an object of pleasure that needs to be attained to the desire for the object of pleasure or desire for any object, be it Artha, Dharma or pleasure. So here there is a basic shift in the definition of Kama. And in that shifted definition, he argues for the primacy of Kama. Finally, Yudhishthira put forward his position. He says that beyond this Artha, Dharma, Artha, Kama, there is a fourth Purushartha called Moksha, which is in reality the supreme, because it frees us from all the demerits and it frees us from all dualities such as happiness and unhappiness. So basically, because moksha gives the ultimate happiness free from all sorrow, ultimate knowledge, ultimate freedom from life and death, that is the supreme. What is important to see here is Mahabharata is putting forward nuanced arguments through the voice of Vidura, Arjuna, Bhima, and Yudhishthira, which upholds primacy of each of the four Purusharthas through different arguments. So, seeing from their perspective, all of their arguments are true in their own sense. They are not actually contradictory arguments. And we must add that Bhima, though he says primary Kama is primary, he says that all the three Purusharthas are to be pursued in equal measure. And this is a very important teaching. So Mahabharata put forward four arguments, each in favor of four Purusharthas, and considered in isolation, all of them are valid, because without dharma, nothing is beneficial, nothing is we can use them. Like if we abandon dharma and only pursue artha and kama, there will be papam generated, and that papam will lead to dukkha. So obviously it is not useful. Ultimately, you have to wade through the samsara. Dharma is necessary. But to perform dharma and to pursue kama, you also need artha. Without artha, dharma and kama is not possible. Therefore, the artha is also primary. And without kama or desire for some result in the first place, you would neither perform dharma or even perform artha, right? So desire is also primary in that sense. Moksha being the supreme goal of life, it is the most primary, most important thing. See what a beautiful way the Mahabharata is putting. So what is the purpose of this discussion? Then how should we pursue all the four Purusharthas? How should we balance this pursuit if all of them are important? The answer to this is provided in Vanaparva or Aranyaka Parva in chapter 33, where Mahabharata argues for a united pursuit of Purusharthas and discourages fragmented pursuit of any one of them in isolation. This is a very important teaching, and it is not a teaching unique to Mahabharata also. You will find similar teaching in other texts, such as even Kama Sutras. For example, in the very first chapter, it teaches united pursuit of Dharma, Artha, Kama. Even in Manusmriti, many other places, you will find such teachings. But the uniqueness of Mahabharata is how beautifully it puts it in a narrative format. So Mahabharata in Vanaparva says, Yasya dharmo hi dharmartha klesha bhai, I think there is some mistake here, na sa panditaha, na sa dharmasya vedartha, suryasyandha prabhavmiva. Okay, we are already 7:30. I'll just read the translation. Fragmented, whose dharma is limited to dharma alone, is not a perceptive person, creating for himself only strife and gratuitously. Creating himself only strife. He does not know the meaning of dharma, just as a person who is blind cannot know the brightness of the sun. So what it is saying is, if you pursue dharma in isolation, then you are not a perceptive person, because you are doing it at the cost of your everyday living. You are only bringing more sorrow, more strife into your life. So this is not the true meaning of dharma. This is just like a blind who cannot know the brightness of the sun, who knows only about sun through hearing about his description, but does not actually know what sun is. Similarly, it says, fragmented, whose pursuit of wealth is for the sake of wealth alone, does not know the substance of wealth. He is only its keeper, just as a shepherd is the keeper of the cattle of the woods. So if you are only pursuing wealth or artha, forgetting kama and dharma, then you are not actually a connoisseur of wealth. You are merely a keeper, because you do not know how to enjoy the wealth, how to employ the wealth, how to spend the wealth in a useful manner. You are just talking it up. And similarly, he who is occupied with pleasures alone loses his friends and remains deprived of dharma and artha as well. So if you are only occupied with fulfilling your pleasures, especially your sexual pleasures or even other kind of mundane pleasures, then you become deprived of everything. because you're so addicted to your addictions that you will slowly lose your friends. Slowly you will lose all punyam. You will even lose all material prosperity, because to fulfill the pleasure you have to uh, keep using your artha, right? Only then you will be able to fulfill your pleasure. So at the end of the day, you're left, you're penniless, right? So what Mahabharata therefore suggests is, therefore those who are wise are never careless in matters concerning with either dharma or artha, for it is from them together that kama or pleasures come. So fragmenting dharma from desire for material prosperity and them from desire for sexual pleasure, that is fragmenting or isolating dharma from artha and both dharma and artha from kama, one should not pursue only one of them. In this way, one should not pursue the purusharthas. One should enjoy them. One should enjoy all the dharma, artha and kama always together. Enjoy them together without separating one from the other. So this is the teaching of the Mahabharata, that we should always try to pursue all the three purusharthas together. And when you pursue them together, when you pursue artha and kama by aligning yourself to dharma, you're indirectly also walking towards the path of moksha also. So you'll be able to pursue all the four of them in that sense. I think in one of the texts, it says that try to pursue all the three, artha, dharma, artha, kama together. If some situation arises, three cannot be pursued together, at least then pursue two of them together. If that is also not possible, then only pursue only one together. And preferably that one should be dharma. So the point is, it is not that one cannot pursue only one purushartha and always have to pursue three. But the point is, to gain superior result, one has to pursue the life goals, the dharma, artha, kama together. So if we want to pursue, take up a course of action, we need to ask ourselves, to what end are we doing it? Is it helpful from the perspective of dharma? Is it helpful from the perspective of artha? Is it helpful from the perspective of kama? And it is better to undertake only such activities which fulfills all the three criteria, or at least two criteria. Even if it is fulfilling artha and kama alone, if as long as it is at least not violating dharma, that is okay. So this is the teachings on the purusharthas from Mahabharata. And I think we have half an hour left. And we have two more small sections to deal, then we'll take up Q&A. So in this session, we discussed about Shila, the root of everything, not just dharma, but of prosperity of everything that is worthy of human life. Then we discussed balancing purusharthas. Now, I am going to discuss two interesting ideas in Mahabharata. These are basically ideas of chains of causation. And Mahabharata discusses these chains of causation, basically psychological causation, in the context of both dharma and adharma. Basically, causation is of the nature, given this, that must arise. That is, if this is there, this principle is there, this phenomenon is there, then it gives rise to something else. So we will discuss two such chains of causation, one in the context of dharma and one in the context of adharma. So in the context of adharma, we discuss the chain of greed or lobha, and in the context of dharma, we will discuss the chain of self-control or dhamma that Mahabharata gives. Again, most of these discussions are from Shanti Parva. Now, the interesting point to note is greed and self-control, they are opposite forces. While greed is the cause of suffering, self-control, dhamma, is the antidote to greed. So that is why this parallel discussion is very interesting. So what Mahabharata says, what is this chain that Mahabharata speaks about? I'll just read out these quotes. They are self-explanatory. From greed arises every conceivable act of harm to oneself and to others, and to great pain and suffering thereby. So if you are full of greed, it eventually leads to you to commit actions which are harmful to you as well as harmful to others. This inevitably leads to suffering. Similarly, another quote in the same discussion, it's all from chapter 158, 159. And the next verse that continues, from greed arises anger, confusion. From anger then leads to confusion, then confusion leads to egoism, egoism leads to intolerance, shamelessness, loss of prosperity, worry, and ill reputation. See, there is a chain here. If you are greedy, if you act through greed, from the impulse of greed, just because we have intense desire for something, that is greed for something, does not mean we are always able to acquire it, right? So when we are unable to acquire our object of our greed, that naturally gives rise to anger and frustration. So this anger and frustration further clouds our mind, causes confusion, causes us to lose our clarity of thought, and it leads to egoism, pride, mistaken notions of our self-image, and it leads to intolerance. Because of this greed eventually leads to anger and intolerance. You remember the story of the fox and the grapes, right? The sour grapes. The fox comes, he sees a very beautiful grapes which appears very tasty. He tries to take it, tries to eat it, but it is at a higher branch, so he is unable to reach it. He tries for a whole day, but still he is unable to reach it. Finally, frustrated, he goes away with an attitude of intolerance towards that grapes, because now he is saying, no, the grape is sour, it is not good, that is why I am going away. You see, that is delusion also. So this leads to shamelessness, because when we are blinded by greed, then we would end up doing actions in a reckless manner, in a shameless manner. Eventually, all this will lead to loss of prosperity, worry, tension, and ill reputation, because ultimately we'll end up doing such actions which will bring ill repute to us. Again, from greed arises miserliness, we become stingy, excessive thirst, that is, we become too much addicted, too much hankering for worldly objects, arrogance of one's high family, arrogance of learning, arrogance of beauty, arrogance of plentiful wealth, aggression. See, greed leads to all kinds of arrogance, because the more greed is, more you acquire things. The more you acquire things, if you are unable to acquire things, it will lead to anger, confusion, etc. But if you are able to acquire things, then it leads to arrogance. Arrogance of your own image, self-image, of your learning, of your beauty, of your wealth, and so on and so forth. This arrogance leads to aggression, disrespect, distrust of others, deviousness towards all beings. See, in whatever path the greed takes you, it will always end up harming you and harming others. That is why the first verse said that greed always leads to harm to oneself or the others, resulting in suffering. Greed, when fulfilled, results in arrogance, which in turn results in aggression, disrespect, distrustfulness, and deviousness towards others. Greed, when unfulfilled, leads to anger, confusion, intolerance, shamelessness, loss of prosperity, worry, and ill reputation. And then again, Mahabharata says, forceful possession of wealth of others, rudeness to women, to their women, onslaught of forceful speech and will, onslaught of the tendency to speak ill of others, hatred, self-praise, dangerous acts, doing what ought not to be done, that is, doing all adharmic activities, all this arise from greed. See, this phrasing is very important. The first 2-3 points that is saying in Manusmriti, there is a discussion about what constitutes adharma from action, physical action, what constitutes adharma in our speech, what constitutes adharma in our thoughts. So this forceful possession of wealth of others, etc., it constitutes adharma of action. Rudeness in speech or forceful speech and will, tendency to speak ill of others, all these are adharma of speech. So through greed gives rise to all these adharmas. One commits all these adharmic activities. In greed arises the mighty onslaught of envy and jealousy. You see, once the greed makes home in you, then it will automatically give rise to envy and jealousy. Because you're greedy, you want this, that, etc. You become intolerable to others having certain things that you wish for, you desire after. So if you're a greedy person, you may be having a decent home, you may be having a decent car, but if your neighbor or your friend buys, say, a Rolls Royce or a big bungalow with a swimming pool, then you suddenly big envy him. Notwithstanding the fact that you are leading a comfortable life, you may be even leading a fairly luxurious life, but still you lust after others' wealth, others' possessions. That is what envy, jealousy is. And in greed, there is mighty onslaught of falsehood and lies. So if you're greedy, your goal is to acquire what you want. You become so clouded in the judgment that you do what is not to be done. That is, you don't care about the means you employ to attain your goal. So you end up taking refuge in adharma. You end up taking refuge in falsehood, in lies. You use all means necessary to acquire what you want. That is what greed does. Then follows the onslaught of physical illness. So if you're leading such a life, ultimately there will be consequences. And such consequences, eventually, the result of your action is that it will take a toll on your body, and then the dreadful onslaught of death. Eventually you die. So there is always a consequences to your actions. And another place, Shanti Parva says, ignorance is the root cause of greed, and greed feeds ignorance. See, what is the root cause of greed? It is ignorance. Ignorance about reality, ignorance about truth. So in this ignorance and greed feeds into each other. So long as one exists, the other must exist. Therefore, the great stress in our tradition to self-knowledge. We have to attain knowledge about reality. That is what is stressed again and again and again for this reason. Now, so that was the chain of Lobha. Now let us quickly look into chain of Dhamma or self-control. So Mahabharata says, according to their understanding, different sages have come up different answers to the question, what is the best dharma? However, self-discipline or dharma remains the basis of all of them. So whatever tenet of dharma you hold as primary, you hold as supreme, ultimately all those tenets have their basis in dhamma or self-discipline, because without self-control you are not able to perform any dharma at all. Why? Because our indriyas, our mind is by nature, they are trained to go after hanker after the worldly objects. So they by nature, they move outwards. But to perform dharma, to perform those activities which give you punya, it means that you have to curb your indriyas away from the indriya sukha, indriya bhogas, or the objects of the senses. You have to turn it away from there and force it or make it indulge in activities which bring punya. Therefore, whatever the dharma activity is there, it is not possible without indriya nigraha, which is dhamma. In Manusmriti, there is a verse which says, the teachings of Dharma Shastra, the teachings of Dharma, is only to be given to those who have been able to restrain themselves, turn themselves away from the pursuit of kama, addiction to kama and artha. Then the Shanti Parva says there is in this world no dharma greater than conquest of the self. Again, Indriya Nigraha. The one who has brought his self under control sleeps a peaceful sleep and awakes with a sense of peace. He walks with a feeling of happiness and in his heart is always joyful. In contrast, the one who has not brought his self under control is full of agitation always. Besides, he keeps creating more disorders from the ones that exist in him already. This is obvious. If you're full of greed and desire and lust, your mind is not at peace. You're always thinking, you're always worrying, you're always hankering, you're always addicted, you're always distracted. But if you have brought yourself, your mind, your indriyas under control, then you can have a very beautiful sleep without any worry, without any hankering. Then you will live a worryless, content life. So now to the chain of self-control, Mahabharata says, the conquest of the self, that is Dhamma or Indriya Nigraha, leads to forgiveness and reconciliation, Kshama, to patience, which is Titiksha, to non-violence, an attitude of equanimity, to truth, to simplicity of character, to control over one's physical senses, gentleness, modesty, generosity, freedom from anger, feeling of contentment, pleasant speech, and not seeking fault in others. These are all manifestations of the conquest of self. This is very obvious because when once your mind is in your control, then automatically forgiveness and reconciliation follows. Because only when your mind is not in control, there is this intolerance, this anger, this frustration takes control. You're not able to forgive. You're not able to reconcile. You're not able to have patience. So once the self is in control, all these attitudes will come. An attitude of equanimity, samadrishtatva, samata, towards everybody. Adherence to truth, simplicity, straightforwardness, all of them will flow naturally. Who has conquered his self has feelings of friendship towards all. Because once you've controlled yourself, then you are not given easily to notions of revenge, to notions of enmity. There is all a feeling of friendship. So if you know the sannyasins, when they take sankalpa of sannyasa, vrata, they say that I will practice ahimsa as a mahavrata. I will give abhaya to all creatures. That is, there is no need to be afraid from me for all creatures, not just another human beings. So I will be friend of all, like Vishwamitra. So that is only possible when you have absolute control yourself. You're completely removed all hankerings, all attachment, and completely rooted in dispassion. Right? So himself free from fear above all, he brings for others freedom from fear. Having an attitude of equality towards all beings, he has a feelings of friendship for all. So this is what results from Dhamma, self-control, which is again at the root of all the practice of Dharma, because without Dhamma, practice of Dharma is not possible. So even for Shila, Dhamma is the core. Shila is possible when there is Dhamma, right? So now there is just one more slide, two more slides, and we'll end the session. So Mahabharata dwells upon Dharma when it is discusses the tenets of Dharma. It concerns itself with two kinds of attributes of Dharma, or two kinds of tenets of Dharma. One which are in relation to oneself, and one which are in relation with others. Some attributes are such that they come under both buckets. But just largely speaking, some Dharma Lakshanas which are in relationship to one's own self, how we live, how we are related to one's own self. They are Satya, Dhamma, Shaucha or purity, Arjava or lack of deviousness, Three, endurance, Achapalam, resoluteness of character, Dana, giving and sharing, Tapas, austerity, Brahmacharya, self-control and celibacy. On the other hand, some Dharma tenets which are in relationship to others, how we act with respect to others. Ahimsa, not to violate others' being. Samata, attitude of equity and equanimity. Shanti, peace and tranquility. Lack of aggression and cruelty, akrodha or andasamshaya. Amatsarya, absence of envy. Daya, compassion. So all these tenets are needed. These are all, as I said, tenets of Samanya Dharma, which are universal, applicable to everybody. And we discussed how these tenets are not optional in the Dharma Shastra sessions. They are born out of Vidhi, Vakyas. That means they are binding. Practice of them leads to Punya, Swarga, Chitta Shuddhi, Moksha, and non-practice of them leads to Dukkha, Papa, Naraka, right? Just final concluding slide, and then we'll open for questions. So Mahabharata in Adi Parva gives about family of Dharma. A more detailed version is given in Puranas such as Vishnu Purana. I've quoted both. So in Adi Parva, it says that Dharma got married to 10 daughters of Daksha Prajapati. So these 10 daughters were Kirti, fame, Lakshmi, prosperity, Dhriti, steadiness, Medha, intelligence, Pushti, which is thriving, nourishing, Shraddha, faith, trust, Kriya, action, devotion, Buddhi, intellect, Lajja, modesty, Mati, intuition. While Mahabharata says that Dharma married to 10 daughters of Daksha, in other places, especially in Vishnu Purana and all, we find that Dharma actually married 13 daughters of Daksha Prajapati. The list is almost same. That among the 10 listed by Mahabharata, Mati is not there in Vishnu Purana's list. Instead, 4 others are added. They are Tushti, contentment, Vapu, body, Shanti, which is peace, tranquility, expiation, Siddhi, perfection. So these are, and these are the ones which have been added in Vishnu Purana's list. But Vishnu Purana goes a step further. It not just speaks about the wives of Dharma, but it also speaks about progeny of Dharma. Who are the kids of Dharma? So by Shraddha, that is through Shraddha, Dharma gave birth to Kama, that is desire. Through Lakshmi was born Darpa, pride. Through Dhriti was born Niyama, or precept or rule. Through Tushti was born Santosha, contentment, happiness. Through Pushti was born Labha, commerce, profit. Through Meda was born Shruta, or sacred tradition. Through Kriya was born Danda, Nyaya and Vinaya, three children. Danda is basically the power of punishment, that is correction, the power of punishment. Naya is polity, Vinaya is prudence. Through Buddhi was born Bodha, understanding. Through Lajja was born Vinaya, good behavior. Through Vapu was born Vyavasaya, perseverance. Through Shanti was born Kshema, prosperity. Through Siddhi was born Sukha, enjoyment. And through Kirti was born Yashas, reputation. See how beautifully the Mahabharata and our Puranas and all have put into, through this imagery of husband, wife and children, brought the psychological aspects, not just psychological tenets, but the tenets of Dharma, how when these are practiced, what will be the consequence of such a practice. So the point of this account is, where the pursuit of Dharma is prominent, there the wives of Dharma naturally join the husband. You know, the imagery in the Shastras about wife joining the husband is how the rivers join the ocean. So the Stri Dharma joins Purusha Dharma in a marriage. So the marriage, the notion Vivaha is not notion of equality. We don't speak about equality as we understand in contemporary society. Wife is equal, husband is equal, let us divide property together, let both of them perform all activities. That is not our notion of marriage. Our notion of marriage is of togetherness. The wife has a role, the husband has a role. There is Pati Dharma, there is Patni Dharma, and they together join. And especially the Stri Dharma is Pativrata Dharma, exemplified by Sita, by Savitri, and so many other Rishikas. So this Stri Dharma or Pativrata Dharma is like a river which flows into the ocean, which is Pati Dharma, who is the anchor of a family, Yajamana, right? So in the same way, Dharma as the husband is the anchor, and where the pursuit of Dharma is present, the wives of Dharma such as Kirti, Lakshmi, Dhriti, Meda, Pushti, Shraddha, Kriya, Buddhi, Lajja, Mati, Tushti, Vapu, Shanti, Siddhi, all of them naturally join. All of them come on its own. And when Dharma is joined with the wives together, when both of them are present, then some more qualities come. It gives rise to some more principles which constitute the progeny of Dharma and his wives. So where Dharma is together with, say, Shraddha, that gives rise to desire. When they are together, when Dharma is together with Lakshmi, that gives rise to pride. When Dharma is together with Niyama, with Dhriti, it gives rise to Niyama. So these are deep ideas. This needs to be unraveled, this needs to be reflected upon. It is not that I have discovered everything. I think this family of Dharma is very interesting. The reason I have included it is that for you to reflect upon it further, just like I am reflecting upon it. Some of them I could easily connect directly, but some requires more reflection. Like it is very understandable that through Shanti, and dharma gives rise to kshema or prosperity. It is very easy to understand that when dharma and kirti are together, it gives rise to yashas. And it is also easy to understand when dharma and lakshmi are together, it gives rise to darpa. And similarly, when dharma and tushti are together, it gives rise to santosha. Or when dharma and pushti are there, it gives rise to labha. But when dharma and shraddha are together, how does it give rise to kama is not very visible in the first instance, right? So it's a very wonderful discussion. With this, we end this session as well as the session on the topic of dharma in human life as enunciated in Mahabharata. I hope the sessions have been useful, and I will take up questions. I will read out the questions, whatever has come now. And then if there are any more questions, anybody can ask or put it in the Q&A box. I thank Prabhuji and the organization for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. And I hope I have done some justice to it. Thank you very much. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. I will just read out the questions. I hope that is okay, Prabhuji.
Sorry, what did you say?
Is it okay? I read out the question.
Yeah, please go ahead. My name is Babu.
Oh, yes. Okay. I got confused.
I know.
Yeah. Okay. It is said that dharma and moksha are on either side guarding artha and kama to be followed in righteous manner. Definitely, the reason dharma, artha, kama, moksha are put in that order is moksha comes last because it is the ultimate goal of life. Dharma comes first because it is the foundation of everything. It is the connecting link which connects artha and kama on one hand and moksha on the other. So without dharma, artha and kama would be slippery slope going towards adharma. I think it is. Did you mean the title of slide should have been the chain of Dhamma self-control? No, I definitely meant it the way it is put. I wanted it to be chain of Dharma, in which I am considering the principle of Dharma, principle of Dhamma. That is why it was put as the chain of Dharma, self-control. The question is, my personal perception today towards Dharma Shastra crystallized today. Have been learning for quite some years now, but something suddenly clicked. Pranams. Thank you very much. I am very glad the session was useful to you. Sadhana Chatushtaya prescribes Shamadama Uparati Tidiksha. Yes. So what Sadhana Chatushtaya prescribes is actually nothing but these Samanya Dharma, these qualities that one has to practice, because through these qualities only one is able to transcend, overcome the clutches of Arishad Varga, the Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha. Without that overcoming, there is no Chitta Shuddhi. And without Chitta Shuddhi, there is no Vedanta pursuit. You cannot pursue the Jnana Yoga, right? So Sadhana Chatushtaya is speaking about these tenets only. See, Hiri is defined as forbearance, which is something similar to Titiksha. Sahanam sarvadukhanam apratikara purvakam, So Titiksha is forbearance, patience. I think there would be different meanings of Hri also. In Sanskrit, all these different terminologies have this very different meanings in different contexts. So Hri could also be, I'm just seeing in the internet, Hri could also mean shame, in the sense shyness, modesty. That could also be one of the meanings of Hri. What is difference between Medha and Buddhi? I think, Medha refers to intelligence, whereas Buddhi refers to the intellect, the faculty of the Antakarana. So Buddhi is intellect, whereas Medha is intelligence. So that is one way of looking at it. The session is extremely informative. Thank you very much. One of the wives of Dharma is Lakshmi. How do we differentiate with Lakshmi, wife of Mahavishnu? See, again, these are two different accounts
There is no need to differentiate. You can just take it as it is. Mahalakshmi could be many things. In that context, she is the wife of Vishnu. But here Lakshmi is specifically refers to the quality of prosperity. Right? Here I again request that these tenets of Dharma have been personified. They are Dharma Devatas. So in that sense, all these qualities have also been personified. They are all Devatas, the presiding deities. So I'll just leave a thought with you. If you go to Ganapatya Sampradaya, their Ganapati, one of the forms, very higher forms of Ganapati, is married to both Lakshmi and Saraswati. Just imagine, he's married to both Lakshmi and Saraswati, who in popular understanding, this Lakshmi is called as Siddhi Lakshmi or Siddhi, and the Saraswati is called as Buddhi Saraswati or Buddhi. So we know the wives of Ganapati as Siddhi and Buddhi, but actually we do not connect with them with Lakshmi and Saraswati, right? So we need to understand that all these accounts, they are all true. They are all true. There is no doubt that they are true. But all these accounts are given in different contexts, and each context we have to see. When we are seeing the Vaishnava stories, Vishnu stories, or in the general Puranic stories, like Lakshmi is wife of Vishnu, Saraswati is wife of Brahma, that is correct. There is no doubt in it. But when you go to Ganapatya, there they have a particular hierarchy of deities. Their purpose is sadhana. So there a certain scheme is given. Similarly, for explaining Dharma, a certain scheme is given. If it still bothers you that there is two Lakshmis, just consider this as two Lakshmis. There is Mahalakshmi, who is wife of Mahavishnu. Under that Mahalakshmi, you can think of this Lakshmi as a smaller one. But to be clear, the story says this Lakshmi is the daughter of Daksha. So this Lakshmi is clearly different from the Mahalakshmi, who is the supreme goddess, right? So there is a clarity within that story that Lakshmi given here, the prosperity, is the daughter of Daksha Prajapati. So which is the principle of prosperity in the world, whereas our Mahalakshmi is much more beyond. She stays at a very higher level, transcendent level, right? See, I will not go into the mantras and bija mantras, not beyond the scope of this session. But mantra bijas, where the bijas are there is Lakshmi bija, Kalika bija, and all these are there. Their purpose is different. We don't need to, that the Hri we are speaking here has no connection to the bija mantra per se. There may be some hidden connection, I don't know. But the point is, the bija mantras are completely a different ball game. It's a completely different, it's a part of mantra shastras, and it's a rahasya shastra. I don't want to get into it. Not that I have some deep knowledge. My knowledge is limited in that sadhana marga. Beyond what I do personally, I don't know the rahasya and all. But it is also not needed in this context of this session. We hear that in Kali Yuga, Dharma has only one leg. Yes, definitely. Bhagavad Purana says that Dharma is a bull which stood on four legs, and the four legs were, I think, I had it. Just a second. I'll just come back. So if you see this book cover, the photo has bull of Dharma. So this bull of Dharma is standing on four legs. The four legs is Shaucha, Tapas, Daya, and Satya. So it gives story in Bhagavata. The Kalipurusha was hitting upon this cow, and he injured three legs of the cow. The three legs is Shaucha, Tapas, and Daya. Only one leg is present today, that is Satya. What this means is, Kali Yuga, the human capacity has greatly diminished. The environment around us itself is not conducive to dharma and chanda. So this shaucha in a 100% manner is not possible in Kali Yuga. Similarly, tapasya, the Vishwamitra did thousands of years of tapasya. Now our life is just 100 years. It's not even 100 years. People are having heart attacks in 26, 30, 40 years, right? So we have very short life. How can we do such great tapasya? Similarly, daya, we are lacking in daya. You see violence, you see tamasic behavior everywhere around you, right? It is in the air, you can say. These are all the nature of Kali Yuga itself. That shaucha, tapas, daya, all of them cannot be practiced 100%. You may at best practice 20%, 30%, or if you are very good, you may practice 50, 60%, but not 100%. But Satya is one tenet, it is still in your hands. Though we see that everybody is lying day in and day out, we lie. We tell falsehood even when a situation when it is not needed. Somebody simply asks you what you were doing, you will simply lie. You will not even say some simply thing, I was eating, you will not say. You will say, I was doing something else. Despite that being so, if we decide that I will speak truth, it is still possible. Because truth is such a thing, you can speak 100%. One truth is in 100 in itself, right? It is possible. So that is why in Kali Yuga, bull of dharma stands on only one leg, that is Satya, and everything that comes out of Satya. It does not mean Shaucha is not needed, Tapasya is not needed, it is not possible. They are all difficult, they are needed nevertheless. But Satya is more easily available. And if we are rooted in Satya, then everything else also falls in line. I hope I have answered all the questions. If there are any more questions, we can quickly take them.
Okay, if anybody has any questions, please raise your hands.
I think there are no questions, and we should thank Mr. Nithin Sridhar for the great lecture on Dharma, and hope everybody follows, and Dharma is again back with 4 legs.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Nitinji. And your lectures are so interesting, so useful, so enlightening. What adjectives I use, in fact, I run short of them. All have glued to the ideas you are giving to all of us. And the same sentiments or no opinion is being carried by all our participants here. They have been giving the messages in and out. So we thank you very much for taking us through Dharma on various facets. If anybody wants to talk, you can open up and talk.
Sir, one thing I want to tell, sir. Sir, here, ahimsa paramo dharmaha. That means ahimsa is the most predominant part of dharma. At the same time, the sloka continues, dharma himsa tathaivacha. Ahimsa paramo dharmaha, dharma himsa tathaivacha. Here, both are there. Here I want to have a clarification from this Guruji that whether this ahimsa is related to Brahmana Tattva, Dharma himsa tathaivacha is related to Kshatriya Tattva. Also he has informed about Samata. Samata is related to Vaishya Tattvam, and absence of enmity is related to Sudra Tattva. Whether can this be correlated like this?
Okay, interesting question. But first, one clarification. The second part of the shloka, it's it's a concoction. It's not there. There no text says dharma himsa tataivacha. It is simply not available in any text. There is only ahimsa paramo dharma and something else is there. But neither in Mahabharata, nor in Puranas, nor in Dharma Shastras, there is a second statement saying dharma himsa tataivacha. So that is a modern makeup. I think 50, 60 years down the line, somebody just created and added that verse. So please note this, that it is not a correct quote. There is only ahimsa paramo dharma. There is no dharma himsa tataivacha. Having said this, I understand why that second half verse was added, because the content of the verse is correct. That even the Shastra says that while ahimsa is the parama dharma, it gives exceptions to that. It gives conditions wherein the himsa is needed. So, but that verse itself is non-existent. It does not exist in primary verses. So now to address your question, so there is a Mimamsa principle that between a general rule and a specific rule always has a higher weightage. So the general rule is ahimsa paramo dharma. Ahimsa is the highest dharma. There is no doubt about it, because himsa is embedded in samsara. Himsa is very embedded in samsara. You cannot live in this world and say that I have performed zero himsa. Ahimsa in its true sense is liberation. In its true sense, ahimsa can be practiced only by a jivan mukta, only by a jnani. Why? Because jnani has attained the status, in the words of Isha Upanishad, jnani state is that, what is that verse? I just forgot the verse. The meaning of the verse is, jnani is one who sees his own self in the beings of all beings and all self of all beings within his own self. So he is truly able to see Atman everywhere. Therefore, without, there is no duality, therefore there is no himsa. Himsa comes into play where there is dvandva, where there is two. So that is true ahimsa. That is why ahimsa parama dharma. Ahimsa is the greatest dharma because it is the ultimate state. And all of us have to try to that state. And it is the sannyasins alone who take it as a mahavrata. That is, they take it as a great vrata. That is why the sannyasins, for example, they do not do yagya, they do not do any ritual activity involving fire, because fire involves himsa, right? Because when you light a fire, some germs and some bacteria, some lives are harmed. Similarly, sannyasins do not cook food. They take bhiksha. They cannot cook food because cooking involves himsa. They do not do any kind of work that like agriculture, etc., because they have already renounced. And they choose Chaturmasya Vrata. They don't travel during the rainy season, because during rainy seasons, many organisms, there is life everywhere, new life coming up everywhere. If they travel during Chaturmasya, it will cause himsa. So for sannyasins, it is Mahavrata. But for grihasthas like us, it is only a vrata. It is only a tenet we should practice to the best of our ability. How is it function in real life? We do cooking, which is himsa. We do agriculture, which is himsa. Right? And this Pancha Mahayagya that is suggested in the Shastras is an antidote for this himsa that we do in our course of day-to-day life. Because himsa is embedded in the samsara, we cannot simply get it away completely. So we negotiate with violence. We do violence only when it is necessary. So cooking, it is necessary because we will not live without doing cooking. Similarly, agriculture. So similarly, Shastras give certain exceptions, the specific rules. So one of them is himsa of a pashu vadha, in the context of ritual, say in a Vedika yagya, or in context of Shakta Upasana, where animal is killed, that is not considered himsa. That is not considered a violation of ahimsa, because Shastra itself has given a vidhi for that. Similarly, another exception is special duty of a kshatriya, which is to protect people, which is to use danda as punishment to punish the adharmis, which is to wage a righteous war for the benefit of his own kingdom, for the benefit of dharma. right? There himsa is being done, but for the sake of dharma. Similarly, using himsa for self-defense, right? So, in this sense, I agree, for Brahmanas, ahimsa is a greater vrata compared to other varnas. Likewise, for the Kshatriyas, the use of himsa, or rather here the correct term is not himsa, it is danda, is the distinguishing quality. The distinguishing quality for Vaishya is pursuit of wealth, pursuit of prosperity, pursuit of Shri. Distinguishing quality of Shudra is Shushrusha, service without duplicity, says Bhagavad Purana. The reason of all this Varna, see, the Varna is a complicated and controversial subject, and it cannot be deliberated in just few seconds. The Varna has many aspects. There is a social order, there is a division of labor, division of temperaments, guna, karma, and all. But in essentially, Varna is a ritual state. That is what the Upanishads speak about. And the purpose of Varna Vyavastha, the Varna division, is the Vaidika karmas, is to understand what kind of ritualistic action a person is entitled. And here the birth plays a role. It's not purely by guna karma, it is through birth, through janma, through parentage, one inherits the Varna Devata from the parents. This is what the Upanishad says, it's not my statement or something else. So now that is a very different ball game, where the Varna of Dharma, when we speak, it is a ritualistic performance for the sake of Chitta Shuddhi and Moksha. There the ashrama performance also comes. So now the Shastra says all the 4 ashramas are available for Brahmanas. Only 3 ashramas, that is except sannyasa, other 3 are available for Kshatriyas. Only 2 ashrama, Brahmacharya and Grihastha, available for Vaishya, and only the Grihastha is available for Shudra. The reason is, the purpose of Brahmana in a society as well as his birth is he is oriented towards moksha. His face is turned towards moksha. Whereas the Shudra's face is turned towards bhoga, which is material comfort, material pursuit. The Kshatriya and Vaishya are in between. So that is why Grihastha Dharma is only suggested for Shudra, because in the Grihastha Dharma only you are able to fulfill your material desires. Whereas for the Brahmana, what is suggested is slow withdrawal from Grihastha and taking up sannyasa eventually. Eventually, it does not happen in everyday life for everybody, because we are all stuck up in Grihastha, because we all have desires, right? Okay, and I see two questions in the comments. That's why in Patanjali Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga starts with Yama, which in turn starts with Ahimsa. Yes, without Yama Niyama, yoga practice will not fructify. You may be doing all the gymnasium, all the asana, pranayama, but if you have to reach samadhi, then Yama Niyama is needed. Without that, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana itself is not possible without Yama Niyama. Ahimsa is not only not killing or harming by action, but also by speech. Yes, all the tenets are manasa, kaya, vacha, all 3 ways, right? In one Shastra, Govada is explained in a different way. Go also means Jihva. Govada means Jihva Granthi Veda. See, all these psychological yogic explanations are possible. I am not disputing that. But from a Adi Yajnika perspective, which is a valid perspective, because we have a living tradition of doing yagyas, of doing Pashubandha yagyas. And it is not just about Govada. See, go is the sacrifice of cow in a yajna is anyways prohibited for Kali Yuga. It's not recommended for Kali Yuga. You don't see anybody giving a cow as a sacrifice. But goats, etc. are done, and it is not prohibited even in Kali Yuga. There is no statement in Veda which is prohibition. And we have very, very clear descriptions in the Upanishads, in the Brahmanas, etc., wherein it says in this yajna, after this goat, etc., has been sacrificed, this portion of its meat, this portion of its flesh have to be given in yajna in this way. It has to be consecrated in this way. So you cannot simply wipe all of them, sideline all of them by giving some etymological gymnasium, right? I have seen people say mamsa is not flesh, mamsa is fruit pulp. You see, this is intellectual dishonesty, I would say, right? This is a gymnasium because you are uncomfortable with the idea that animals should be or can be sacrificed. This is not at all my opinion. You read Shankaracharya in his Brahma Sutra Bhashyas, you read Ramanujacharya, you read Kumarila Bhatta, all these great Vaidika Acharyas, they all have defended Pashubali in the Vaidika context. Similarly, there are great Tantrika Acharyas who have defended Pashubali in a Tantrika context. See, ritual, and even in Manusmriti, we have very clear statement. Manusmriti says that animals can be sacrificed in the context of Shraddha, in the context of offering to the Devata, in the context of Vaidika Yajna. Now, in the Shraddha, in Kali Yuga, that practice have been stopped, but that is okay. But in the case of Yajna, it has not been stopped, right? Okay, I hope this answers.
We are running out of time, though there are two questions. Maybe we can take up after the session, Babu Garu.
Yeah. Okay. Now, can we go for Prarthana and Janaganamana? Then we'll open the house for a question. Those who want to leave for urgent work, they may go. Now, we'll request. Is he there? Purushottam Garu. Purushottam Garu.
महोदय स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महिषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु काले वर्षतु पर्जन्यः पृथिवी सस्यशालिनी देशोऽयं क्षोभरहितः ब्राह्मणः सन्तु निर्भयाः अपुत्राः पुत्रिणः सन्तु पुत्रिणः सन्तु पौत्रिणः अधना सधना सन्तु जीवन्तु शरदां शतं सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ओम शांति शांति शान्तिः ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ओम शांति शांति शांतिः नमस्कारः महोदय
Namaskaraः. Dhanyavadah. Now, let's national anthem by
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे जय
Thank you.